Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining today. I'm Nicole Gignac, and I'm the VP of Sales at L2T Media. Thanks for joining us. Today, I just wanted to hit on L2T Media's value proposition and why we're putting on this event today. So really, we're focused on innovation and how we can help you all sell and service more cars, which is really the focus of why we're bringing this event to you today. So as part of our partnership with Google, we've put together content for this event exclusively for L2T Media customers. And presenting today are members of the Google team that work intimately with L2T Media every day. So we put this content together just for you all. And we wanted there to be a small group of our customers on today's webinar so we can make it more intimate and conversational. That said, we're going to ask that everyone mute their phones. Otherwise, if you all don't, we will certainly mute them for you. You'll be able to talk or ask questions. We've formatted it so you can ask questions. But so please do speak up. However, when you are listening, please mute yourself just so we don't hear the background noise at your dealership. Jessie will be presenting today from Google, and she's also going to share a great offer that we have right now at the end of the presentation. So that said, I will pass it over to Jessie.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
Perfect. Well, welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for having me and taking the time out. I know this can be a tough thing to do. At least it's not the end of the month, because I know that gets a little crazy. But what we're going to talk about today is how YouTube can actually help drive leads. So let me start by giving you a little overview of who I am. I am the Global Programs Lead on Partner Enablement here at Google. I'm based out of the Mountain View, California office. So it's nice and early for me. Got here early, had my coffee, so forgive me if I have any shaky dad jokes that I'm telling. But we'll try to make this interesting and educational, and hope you get something out of this. So I have been at Google for just over 2 years, but in my role, I've done everything from digital advertising operations management to multimedia advertising directing at different multimedia groups. I am a proud alumni of UC Berkeley, go Bears, and California Lutheran University in Southern California. And I'm very, very passionate about helping businesses thrive in this advertising landscape that is continually changing, especially in automotive, which is where I mainly focus. And I'm also a big pit bull rescue advocate. So if any of you have pit bulls out there, good. All right, let's talk about the agenda. So what we're gonna go through is one, just what does advertising on YouTube look like? So I'm just gonna give you a baseline view of what it means to advertise on YouTube, how it works, some of the reasons why this is a really effective way to reach your customers, and then how you can actually target them and how you can reach the customers that are most likely to convert. And then, of course, I know you're going to want me to show you the potential impact. So we'll go into some success stories and talk that through. And as Nicole mentioned, you can feel free to ask questions throughout. I'm fine with that. Just feel free to interrupt, or we will definitely have time for questions at the end. Okay, so let's start with the product overview. What does it look like to advertise on YouTube? Well, what I'm going to be talking mostly about are TrueView ads. You might hear things like in-stream ads. You might hear, skippable ads. You might hear pre-roll ads. These are all essentially different names for similar things. So with pre-roll ads, all we're talking about are those commercials that are online. TrueView is a little bit different for some reasons that I will talk through. But TrueView is YouTube's pre-roll solution. It is a skippable format. So basically, it lets the viewers choose what they're going to watch. And you, as advertisers, only pay when they're actually engaged enough to watch the ad. So it's really similar to the CPC, cost per click structure that you know and love with Google search ads and with the Google Display Network. So this is how this works. So I'm going to walk through this in a little bit more detail, but it's very simple. You can easily get your videos up there. You have, really detailed metrics on the back end to identify what's working in real time. And the really exciting thing is now with some changes, YouTube's actually talking to Google and the search network, which I know sounds like, okay, well, it should have been doing that all along, but it's actually quite a feat considering these are the two largest search engines in the world. So what is TrueView? TrueView is called TrueView because the advertiser only pays if the person does not skip the ad. Now, when I say this, we're not talking about the first 5 seconds. I'm going to come back to that because that is incredibly, incredibly important. But when you pay is if the person, the viewer, watches the entire ad, or at least 30 seconds of it if the ad is longer. We don't really recommend having longer than a 30-second spot, but if it is, that's the cutoff point. So if they watch 30 seconds or the entire ad, so maybe it's 15 seconds and they watch the whole thing, then you will pay for that. Or if they actually take an action, like they click on one of the overlays, which I'll talk about what those are, or they click to visit, get more information on your website. So only when they're engaged enough to watch the whole thing or actually click through is when you're going to pay. Now, this should make it a little bit straightforward. Embarrassingly enough, this is a screenshot from a search that or a YouTube video that I actually watched. You can see that I searched for cats, and I found this one with 5.4 million views, a funny cat compilation. So of course I was targeted with a pet ad. So basically what happens here is for the first 5 seconds, this skip button that you're seeing actually won't be there. It'll be a countdown. And I'm sure you guys have experienced this when you've been on YouTube. And if you haven't really paid attention to it, I take a look and you'll see what I'm talking about. But that ad, you can't actually skip it for the first 5 seconds. So you as an advertiser, as a dealership, get their undivided attention for 5 seconds. So this is where you want to make sure you have a really, really compelling message there. So what this means is that if they, in the first 5 seconds, you hook them and they say, you know what, this is actually compelling and I want to know more, then they can watch the whole thing. But if it's a 30-second ad and they watch 29 seconds of it, maybe they're so compelled that they watch 29 seconds, but they actually skip, you still do not pay. It's only if they watch the whole thing. So this is the cost per view model. So the reason we do this is because it's really to balance the ecosystem. So Google and YouTube, our goals are to get viewers and searchers to our sites. What this means is we want to make sure that we continue to be the #1 and 2 largest and most trusted search engines. So in order to do that, the customers have to have a good experience. So the viewers, the searchers, they have to have a good experience and find what they're looking for. This is why we want to make sure that it's useful and not annoying. So this is why we let them skip. But on the flip side of that, we want to make sure you as advertisers are actually getting value out of advertising on Google or YouTube so that you continue to do this. That's why we make it really cost effective for you, and you only actually pay when that really qualified person, because we can set a lot of targeting around this, actually is interested enough to continue and watch the whole thing or click through. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. We'll talk a little bit more about this, but just want to make sure we set that baseline knowledge in terms of what TrueView ads actually are. Now, when we talk about the skippable aspect, this to me is a really interesting stat. It says that this is from an older study, but 8 out of 10 viewers prefer TrueView ads to non-skippable ads. I'm curious as to who those 2 people are, those 20% of people who actually prefer to have an ad where people make you watch. So that's interesting to me. But the important thing here is that what we notice is that people who choose to watch a video instead of who are forced are 75% more engaged. And 65% of these campaigns that we've run saw a significant lift in brand-related search. So what we mean by that is you run this campaign, and then when you actually are measuring your brand searches, whether on paid or organic, they actually saw 65% of them, so the majority of them actually saw a significant, meaning statistically provable that this had an impact, lift in brand-related searches. So YouTube, as a result of all of this, is actually moving toward 100% skippable ads. You will see some ads that are not skippable on YouTube, but we found that the skippable experience is better for everybody, for the viewers, for the advertisers. All right, so this is really, really important. Very good stuff. There are other ways we can engage on YouTube rather than just TrueView, so I just want to call out a couple of those things. There are call to action overlays, so you can see that circled in red, and essentially what this is it's something that can pop up as someone's watching a video. Now you might say, okay, what are these cars, this used car, what does this have to do with Ellen? But what is happening in the background is we can actually target the person that is viewing based on things like demographic, but even deeper, things like their behavior, or are they in the market for a car? Are they in the market for a specific car? Have they visited your YouTube page in the past? Are we remarketing them based on other things? So we can actually show an overlay ad to those people as well. So just wanted to make sure that we understood there are different ways to engage on YouTube other than just the in-stream videos. Couple other ad formats besides the overlay. We talked about the skippable pre-roll, right? So that's where you can skip the ad. You don't pay unless they watch the whole thing. We talked about that. There's also suggested or related and search results. What these are is they're not actually ads that play automatically. They're ones that are suggested based on what people are looking for. So if I'm on YouTube and I'm searching for, the 2017 Ford Fusion Sport, then I can actually, as a dealership, surface an ad, a video ad there. So again, this is the cost per view, cost per click format. So you can surface that, and if they're interested enough to click through, then that is when you would actually pay. So this is as they're watching another video, this is a suggested or related, and then really similar to that, if they're actually just searching, then you can surface that in the search results on YouTube. Okay, so that's in a nutshell, and I know I went through that a little bit quickly, but I just wanted to make sure we had some baseline knowledge on what YouTube TrueView actually is. So let's talk about increasing reach and efficiency and how you can target your customers using YouTube. And a lot of this is going to be, I'm going to frame this as a shift from TV to digital, because this is the reality of things, is we're seeing a pretty large shift happening. And a lot of this is because of fragmentation. So the media landscape, and I tell you this coming from newspaper, so I worked primarily in the newspaper industry before I started at Google, so I'm very, very well aware of traditional media and some of the benefits and the challenges and how these things work together. So in no way am I saying that you should 100% cut your TV spend and just completely get rid of it and throw all of that money online. You're welcome to do that if you want. I mean, I probably shouldn't discourage that, but at the end of the day, we know TV is valuable. It's just different. It's a different landscape. So we went from having a few major networks that ruled things to this incredible array of choices and fragmentation. So what has this done? Well, you can see here what's happened to top-rated shows. We went from a top-rating show having 77% share to 7.1% share last year. So huge, huge shift in terms of actual reach. Now, this is interesting, right? Reach is an important metric, but there's some other metrics that I think are even more crucial. So reach is down, but also time spent watching is down. So we can see here that Boston, LA, New York, Chicago, Atlanta, Detroit, Dallas, all of these major areas, we're seeing a significant dip in watch time. So this doesn't tell the entire story. So I want to make sure that we're casing this in a few different ways, because I like looking at data and kind of seeing what story does this tell. So we can see a significant decrease in reach. We're also seeing a significant decrease in time spent. But the other element that I'm going to bring up a little bit later is something called viewability. So of that time spent, so our reach is down, our time spent is down, but of the time spent, the viewability is also down, meaning the people actually paying attention. Why is this? Multi-screening, right? We are skipping through ads because of things like, the DVRs, that kind of technology, but also we're doing other things. So if a commercial comes on, if we don't skip through it, we've got our attention focused elsewhere. So I'm going to come back to that, but I want to make sure we remember that these are the three key things that are really impacting this. So just some more, some more kind of evidence here of how things are changing. 70% of the Tonight Show's views are actually online. Okay, so this is the executive producer of the Tonight Show, says that we see YouTube as a way to get what we're doing on TV to more people, which I think is a really interesting and really a smart way to look at it, because TV is impactful. It's a big, it's something that packs a punch when people do see it. but that reach is down and the time spent is down and the viewability is down. So supplementing with YouTube and have this as a way to get that content out there to more people in a measurable and effective way, and in a way that is great in terms of ROI, this is where YouTube comes in. Similarly, if we look at the Late Late Show, we know that carpool karaoke is a really popular segment, and it averages about 1.2 million viewers per night for the show overall. But this carpool karaoke segment with Adele had more than 15 million views in one day. Now that's way, way up. I haven't looked since then what the views are, but it's definitely more than doubled. It is, I think it was like 50 or 60, I can't remember. I'm probably lying, and you guys are able to Google that right now and tell me I'm wrong. But it has significantly went up, but within one day, 15 million views. So you can see how the landscape is shifting. Now, that is kind of what's happening in the TV space. What's happening in the digital video space is that online video continues to become more habitual. So this makes sense. We're still watching things on TV, but we are, have this habit of actually watching things online. So from 2013 to last year, you can actually see that giant increase in online viewers. And 2013 wasn't that long, it was a few years ago, right? So even in just a few years, we've seen 45 million viewers, which is a lot, jump all the way to 63 million viewers, which is a whole lot. So digital video viewership is becoming more and more popular. Okay, so what does this mean to the dealer? Let's talk about some dealer-specific things really quickly here. We can see that in the dealer space, we see a 220% year-over-year growth in automotive video watch time. Okay, so this shouldn't be surprising because we're seeing this growth overall. You can see here in 2012, the amount of time spent watching TV versus online versus last year. And this tells the same story that we were talking about. But this is a trend that we're seeing consistently in the automotive market. And there are some reasons for that. And I'll talk about those reasons in just a minute. But before I do, I wanted to just touch on this viewability aspect. So because we're seeing reach decrease, because we're seeing the amount of time spent decrease, and because we're seeing this is the reason why this shift is even more important. So viewability, what is it? Viewability just means, is the ad able to be seen? Is it being looked at? Now, in the US, average viewability of video ads across the web, not including YouTube, is 54%. So this is other online video networks. TV, this is closer to 45% viewability. Okay, so this means that people aren't skipping through it. This is about, so we'll call it about half. So these other mediums outside of YouTube have about half, a 50% viewability. For YouTube, this is something that's really, really important, is to have this viewability. Video viewability for YouTube is at 91%, and audibility is at about 95%, meaning you can actually hear it. So what this means is that people are naturally going to be more engaged because they're actually able to see it. And what this also means, and I can't stress this enough, is that if you're paying for something, let's say it's a TV spot, or it could be some other online video platform, and you're paying a certain price for a certain number of views, or a certain number of times the ad actually gets out there, if the viewability is 50%, you're actually paying twice as much because only half of it's being seen. Whereas with YouTube, the vast majority, 91%, is actually viewable or being seen. So, and this has a lot to do with that TrueView kind of model. So again, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but so important because of the reach, because of the fact that time is shifting in terms of where time is being spent, and because of this viewability factor. And this is, if we need more, I know this might be a little overkill. I think you guys probably curiosity, we get the point. YouTube's really cool. But I'm gonna, just forge ahead and make sure that this is really, really understood. YouTube is the #1 online platform for video. So moving away from the TV story, if we just look at online video, and this is actually this was surprising to me because I personally spend maybe too much time on Netflix, but you can see here that the total online video watch time of this key demographic of 25 to 54, and 25 to 54, this demographic makes up about 75% of the population, and this is a really key demographic, which is why we're focusing on this. 25 to 54 makes up about 102 billion minutes of watch time. But if you look at YouTube, YouTube accounts for 35% of that at 36 billion. And then Netflix is only about 10%. So this is a really interesting story that is being told here. And what this means, because of this, YouTube actually reaches over 90% of these internet users in this category. So YouTube reaches over 90% of this 25 to 54 range. Okay, so that is important because, as we'll talk about momentarily, if we have this great reach, then we're able to get a lot more granular in terms of who we're actually showing our ads to. So we can, kind of close the loop a little bit more, cast a little bit of a smaller net, because we're actually, well, it's a broader net, but we're being more specific about the fish we're going after. And we can say, these are the people I want. I want the people who've exhibited the behavior of shopping for a vehicle. And then from there, that really particular audience, we're only, interested if they're engaged enough to actually watch the whole video, and that's the only time we actually pay for them. So just one more thought on this reach topic before I talk about why we care so much about this is basically the reach here, and YouTube on mobile only. So you can see the YouTube desktop is over there at 37%. YouTube only on mobile only actually reaches more people than any of these major news networks. So if you combine that, that's an even larger reach, but mobile only is significantly more reach than any of these networks. And this is based on Nielsen's GRP ratings. So you can see how this actually stacks up with TV. So I think this is just kind of interesting. Okay, so that's great. It's got more reach. We understand it. That's awesome. We've beat this dead horse. But why do we care? Okay, why do we care about reach? We care about reach because YouTube can make local media buys more efficient. So if we have this reach, it's actually going to help us bring our ROI down. Okay, because like I mentioned before, the more reach we have, the more granular we can get with the targeting. So if we look at YouTube's CPPs, or cost per points, compared to spot TV campaigns, and this is, again, we're focusing on that demo of 25 to 54. If we look at these major DMAs, we can see actually how much less expensive YouTube is compared to TV. And again, this isn't even taking into account the viewability factor. This isn't taking into account that YouTube is a cost per view. All right, so this is important.
Hey, Jessie.
Yes.
This is Diane. We've got a question on the previous slide. The dealers are wondering what GRP stood for. It might be the slide before that.
Gross rating points.
Thank you.
Yes, so if you, I'm going to do a terrible job of explaining that, but it essentially has to do with reach. So the higher the gross rating points, the higher the reach. Good question. I'm trying really hard to, I see there's a lot of acronyms in here, and I'm trying to talk them all out, but I do miss some of them. So DMA, designated market area. So please, yes, call me on that stuff. Thank you. Now, this I think is really interesting because you guys have heard of this this phenomenon, which I'm one of these, a cord cutter, right? So these are people who have had cable in the past, but actually decided to stop their cable service and just use the internet, use things like Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, those types of services. But what's interesting is that by 2025, actually half of viewers under 32 will never have subscribed to a pay TV service. So they will be what we call cord nevers. So this is a cute little term that I'll share with you. So cord cutters is what we know as people who stop paying for cable. Cord nevers are those who actually don't ever pay for a cable service. So by 2025, half will not do that. So this is something that is coming. It's it's a big change, and we need to make sure that we're ahead of it. Okay? Why? Why is it so important to be there for in the automotive space specifically? And why are so many people going to videos on YouTube for automotive? It's because of the change in how we shop. So we're seeing, actually, this is a staggering number. We're seeing more than 4 million daily views on in-market auto content. So what do I mean by that? In-market means that it's actually people who are searching for things like reviews, features of cars. They're not just auto content like it's a Fast and Furious trailer or whatever, Fast and Furious 27 trailer. They're actually looking for content related to buying a car. In-market auto content, 4 million plus daily views. That is a lot. Now, when people are actually going to watch auto videos, YouTube is the #1 source. Second is the OEM sites, then the dealer sites, social media, third parties. But the #1 source they go to is YouTube. And this makes sense because video is now our new virtual showroom. So the main types of content we see people looking at when they go to YouTube, when they're looking at auto related videos, are test drives. So basically having people in the car and actually doing a virtual test drive. They're looking at the features and the options, or they're just doing those walkthroughs that normally we do in person or we see photos of. Now, one thing I want to really stress here, because this is a huge shift in how the automotive space has changed, and I'm sure you guys have felt this. But what's really interesting is if you look at the data, love data, love numbers, is that we're seeing about 10-ish years ago, we were seeing people visit an average of maybe 5 dealerships before they bought a car. And this is something that 10 years ago, I did that same thing. I went to an auto mall, I kicked a bunch of tires, I test drove several cars, and we saw them going, average 5 different dealerships. Now people are going to 1, maybe 2 dealerships physically. The research is huge. They're looking at 24 some odd touch points. They're looking at so many different sources like YouTube to do these walkthroughs and test drives. And then when they go to the dealership, really the only thing they're doing is just verifying their purchase, doing that actual test drive and signing the papers. So you're probably noticing that. But this is really important because it used to be just get them to the dealership, get them in here. I got great sales guys and sales ladies, and I'll sell them. They just get them in the dealership. We love that foot traffic. But now we actually need to work to get our dealership to the consumer so that we're there as they're going through that virtual buying process. So things have shifted hugely. Okay. Now, another thing I want to mention is, yeah, we can get in front of people who are watching YouTube, YouTubers we call them. We can get in front of them, but the important thing is that we're actually influencing them. So what we see from, this was a Millward Brown study, an automotive path to purchase study that is done every year. And what we see is that online video is the #1 ad format for purchasers to learn more about vehicles that they haven't considered before. So online video ads are ahead of website ads, search, even search ads, email, brochure, that kind of stuff. So it's also cited as the #1 ad to drive discovery of new vehicles and the #1 ad to influence which vehicle to purchase. So really, really helps kind of in the beginning of that process. And we see that people actually take action. So they're actually taking action when they are watching a video. The #1 action, using their computer to find more info. This makes sense because, like we talked about before, we see significant brand-related search lift when we do video. So this makes sense that the #1 action people are taking is not, not necessarily clicking on the ad, but actually going and doing more research later on. So this is one of the key metrics that we look at when we're looking at YouTube. Okay. So this is all great. This sounds awesome. Love me some YouTube, because basically all I've done is I've said, hey, do you want to do a TV campaign where I can target it exactly to the customer who's in the market, and you only pay if they watch the whole ad, and you get incredible measurable results? That's YouTube, right? So I know you guys you love this. This is all great. I'm assuming, because I can't see you, I can't hear you. Either that or you're just shaking your head and you're like, I cannot wait to be off this webinar. But I highly doubt that's the case. I think you guys are having a good time. I mean, I am. Maybe it's the coffee, but that's great. But how do you actually drive more leads with it? I know that this is what you care about. So the way we can drive more leads is severalfold. So like I said, we have the ability to identify real-time intent in the auto shopping process. What this means is we're able to see people who are actually in the market for a vehicle or a specific type of vehicle. Caveat to that is we want to make sure that we are geographically focused in a large enough area if we get really, really granular, because we want to have a big enough lake to fish from, or whatever you want to call it. I'm talking a lot about fish in this webinar for some reason. But we see about 20,000 plus automotive searches per minute happening. YouTube is, again, the #1 source for in-market auto video watching content. So in-market, by that I mean people who are actually looking to buy. And we see Google measures actually over 5,000 monthly intent signals per in-market shopper. So what this means, without trying to dig into this too much, because I'm not an engineer and I don't program these things, is that we have actual personalized algorithms that are taking a look at what people are doing online, what their behaviors are, what they're looking at, and we're actually able to see if they're close to making a purchase. And this technology is getting better and better and better, and we're adding a bunch of different things to it. So with all of these intent signals that we see, we're able to really, really increase the performance of things like YouTube that are a little bit higher in the buying funnel, because we can see that this person's more likely to make a purchase later on, as long as we're measuring correctly. And this is really, I think one of the biggest takeaways here is that YouTube, with your pay-per-click or with your SEM or your search, whatever you want to call it, actually connects brand and performance. Okay, so a lot of that branding stuff that you're doing is taken care of by the OEM. They're taking care of, like, buy Ford because you're gonna get this pretty girl and have a nice dog and be a man, right? They're taking care of the branding. But you are actually doing you're running your really tight pay-per-click campaigns where you're driving those leads. YouTube really helps kind of connect the dots here and helps provide that lift. So it increases favorability, consideration, and purchase intent. Okay, so this basically makes it easier for people to choose you. So as an example, if I'm taking a look at, I'm looking to purchase a car, and there are 2 dealerships that are pretty close by, and they have really similar prices. One of them I've heard of and one of them I have not, or one of them I've heard of and have a good feeling about. I'm more likely to choose the one that I've had a good feeling about. So it actually provides that lift. And then search helps you down the funnel prioritize those leads generated by YouTube and actually drive them to the website. So people are searching for they go on YouTube, you get this increase in brand related searches, right? This increase in favorability, it provides that lift on that end, but it also helps with your search campaign, because your search campaign is going to prioritize those leads and direct people to where they need to go so that they're more likely to convert. So these two together are really, really powerful. So before I get to a couple different case studies, the thought here, and again, like I said, this is not to disqualify traditional media advertising. TV definitely still has its place. It can be very powerful, just like newspaper can, just like any of our traditional media sources. Like I said, I worked in that industry for a long time. But what we're saying is this is an $8 billion TV market, and the digital or the amount of consumer time spent is not at all close to what we're seeing in terms of where dealers are spending their money. So we're seeing very not as much time spent on things like newspaper or TV, but a big chunk of the dealer's budget is being spent there. So when we look at this, automotive study with Google, we saw that advertisers on primetime broadcast TV could have reached 56% more of these 18 to 49-year-olds by also advertising on YouTube with the same exact budget. So again, when we go back to looking at the reach that YouTube has, the amount of time spent watching it, the fact that it's more viewable, we see that this is something where even keeping the same budget, you can have a much, much more effective campaign. Or you can reduce your budget and reach the same amount of people. Or you can increase your budget and have, you know, a significantly bigger impact. So really interesting stuff. And
hey Jessie.
Yeah.
Hey Jessie.
Yeah.
We had a question from a dealer on the slide before on how do you measure the increase in favorability or consideration?
Yes, so this is a really good question, and there are different ways to do that. So we have different brand lift studies that we can do at Google depending on the spend. So if there's a large enough spend, we can actually do brand lift studies where we can really quantitatively measure this lift. But the way we can see the increased favorability, consideration, and purchase intent without doing that big brand lift study, if we have maybe a little bit smaller of a budget, is by looking at some of these proxy things like how much search volume you're getting for brand-related keywords. And I'm going to get into, so on that note, I'm going to get into a little piece of data, kind of a partial case study where we actually see this happening. So it's something you can look at. In terms of favorability, this is where we might see performance increase, like click-through rate increase. We might see conversions increase. So essentially, we're just looking at some proxy metrics, because since this is higher up in the buying funnel, it's not really fair to categorize it in the same way as search. So we're not going to see direct leads coming from YouTube. We may in some instances, but that's not really what this piece of advertising is for. It's the same as TV. TV is not really to, you know, we're not expecting people to come out with a picture from their phone of your TV ad and saying, hey, you know, I saw this, I want this. It's more of that way to, you know, increase that favorability. So what we're looking at are those proxy metrics within our direct response campaigns like search. Does that help for the time being? And then I'll get into that case study. If it doesn't, I'm happy to talk more about this once we get to the end here, which I'm pretty close.
There was a follow-up question on the next slide because they want to know if you've got any tips for dealers that might not have a TV budget to take from.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. So in terms of tips, not a TV budget to take from, you're in, it might seem like you're not in as good of a position, but sometimes, I'm going to be frank with you guys, sometimes I feel like we have these TV budgets and we're afraid to let go of them because it's just what we've always done. And we're afraid that we're going to, you know, if we let go of that, then we're going to see something slip. So if you don't have a TV budget to begin with, then you can look at other means of advertising, things that are higher up in the buying funnel that kind of serve this purpose. It could be a billboard, it could be you know, newspaper, it could be something where you're looking at that sort of more mass marketing. Otherwise, you don't have to spend a whole lot on YouTube. It isn't as expensive as a TV buy for the same reach as we've seen. You can actually run a really effective campaign that's not huge. If you don't have assets, meaning the actual video, that's okay too, because YouTube is a space where it's user-generated content for the most part. So the production quality doesn't need to be, you know, killer. You can actually, we have an app, a free app on the iPhone that's called YouTube Director. And it basically is exactly that. It's like a little built-in director. It tells you where to point and shoot. You can create testimonials, and you can actually create for free your own commercial. So, and I have one more comment on the production side of things later on, but it actually can be kind of nice if you don't have a TV budget because you're not holding on to that thing. But I'd say just make sure if you are going to pull it from other advertising spaces, make sure it's something a little bit, you know, not direct response. So not that search or those things that are driving a ton of leads. Okay, and hopefully by the time I get to the end of this, this will be a little bit clearer. Okay, so again, in the same study, when we looked at 240-ish TV campaigns in the automotive space, we saw that 90% of them would have increased reach and efficiency by integrating YouTube. So for the most part, you know, we have definitely YouTube viewers that are separate from TV viewers. So there are people who only watch TV and people who only watch YouTube. However, there also is a cross section, and that's really important too because it can help with your frequency. So, and what we mean by efficiency is basically lowering the cost. So again, going back to when we looked at cost per points, YouTube is significantly less expensive when we look at who we're reaching, and we can be really targeted. We're not having to look at proxies like, oh, it's Lifetime, so this is probably a woman of this age, right? So really, really good stuff. Now, the last two slides I have are these case studies. So this goes back to, you know, how do I know it increases favorability? Well, this was a study from an advertiser that we've run. This was a auto advertiser. I can't mention names, but this was a case study in tandem with L2T. And what we saw was when we didn't have these upper funnel ads, so this was a combination of YouTube and display. When we didn't have these, we can see what the search click-through rate was, and then what it was when we did have them. Okay, and this was the 4 months that this was running. Now, what's important to note is that this is, like I said, we're looking at the search click-through rate. So this is a whole other campaign, a whole other medium. But we're looking at it when YouTube was running and when YouTube was not running. And we can see what the impact was. So you can see across the board, the click-through rate went from anywhere from a 1% increase all the way up to a 3.2% increase. That's really big. So we can see here that when we ran with and when we ran without, we saw a really, really large increase. And we can get you more details kind of on the study. I know there are probably some specific questions around spend and all that kind of stuff, and we can give you a better idea of that, but I don't have those details on the top of my head just to anticipate those questions. And then the second case study I wanted to bring to your attention, this is dealer success story on TrueView. This was a larger spend. So the one before that we were looking at was not this large of a spend. But this dealership was spending over $50K a month on TV, which isn't uncommon, and they shifted half of that budget to TrueView ads. And like I said, half you don't need to switch half over. You'll still see a significant lift even if you don't move half of the budget over. We just need to break off a little piece to do the testing. But when they did shift half of it over, they saw a 20% increase in website visitors and a 15% increase in walk-in traffic. And then they also saw that this was costing them less than 15 cents per interaction, which is the average cost per view. Okay, so when we're talking about that cost per view, remember TrueView, we only pay when they actually watch the entire thing. We're looking at about, in this case, about 15 cents per interaction per view. So making it a lot more cost effective, and they saw a significant increase in the number of people that were coming to their site and visiting their dealership. All right, now I'm gonna end on this note. I know that Nicole mentioned that there was an incentive running because we believe this is really powerful, especially in the automotive space. I've seen this have huge impact. So if you're thinking this is something that you wanna try, this is a really great opportunity to do that. So what this is basically if you have a minimum investment of 15,000 media spend, so spend on YouTube per CID over 3 months. So that's average 5,000 per month, which is, again, pretty small. If you're running TV, it's a pretty small piece of that. So average 5,000 per month per CID on YouTube. And what we'll do is we'll actually give you $3,000 either towards video production fees if you want to make a really great video that you can use elsewhere as well, or if creative already exists, you're already running TV, then we'll actually reimburse you your management fee, the agency's management fee, for up to $3,000. So this is just our way of saying we really, really believe this works. We just need you to give it a shot. So if you need any more details on this, L2T can give you all of the details. This is for select partners that we're working with, and L2T is one of them. So make sure you talk to them about this. we're really trying to put our skin in the game because we think YouTube is so crucial in the automotive space. So with that, I will open it up for any more questions that there are.
Jessie, I have two questions, and now everyone is also unmuted so they can ask them verbally. One of the questions is, could you please repeat the beginning of the offer? It cut out when you were explaining it. And then the second question is, what is the link for the spot? We have 15s.
Okay, so let me tackle the first one, and then I need some clarification on the second one. So the first one, I'll just repeat this. Essentially, if you spend a minimum on YouTube of $15,000 over 3 months per CID, which basically means per campaign. So this is an average of $5,000 a month. So the reason it's $15,000 over 3 months is because we can shift that around and make it, if there are times where you want to be heavier or lighter, depending on holidays, but also because we want to make sure that we give it a solid 3-month try, because this is really what it takes to show you those great results that we're seeing. So if you do that, then Google is going to provide you with $3,000 to either pay for your video production fees if you want to create great videos for this that you can use elsewhere, or you can use that money to pay the agency's management fee, because there are always management fees associated with running digital advertising. So essentially, we're, like I said, putting our skin in the game, making sure that you feel like you can afford to give this a shot. And if you don't see the results, then you can move on with your life, but we really, really believe that you will. So that's that. And the second question, I'm sorry, Dan, I don't know that I caught what was being asked.
So Ashley said her TV spots are 15 seconds, and in your example, you talked about a 5-second.
Yes. Okay, let me clarify that. So the 5 seconds is the amount of time that you have before the viewer can skip. So you want to have the best practice is either 15 seconds or 30-second ads on YouTube. So 15-second or 30-second, it really depends on what your goals are. And that's something where if you were to move forward with this, then one of the, your L2T representative can help you decide what's best. But 15 or 20 seconds, the 5 seconds is actually the amount of time that the viewer has to watch before they can skip. So if they skip at 6 seconds, you don't pay. If it's a 30-second video, if they skip at 29 seconds, you don't pay. So that's what that 5 seconds is. So the first 5 seconds is really important to pack that punch and make sure you have your message in there, so that even if they skip it, you still get your message out there. So that's what that 5 seconds is. But yeah, if your commercials are 15 seconds, that's perfect.
Okay, everyone's unmuted now, so if you have any other questions, you can either ask them in the chat box or ask them right now to Jessie or Nicole.
Hi, so it said that on that slide that it's $15,000 per campaign over 3 months. So is that like over the 3 months you'd be paying $15,000 total, or $15,000 times, however many campaigns you run?
So it's per campaign. So if you only wanted to do one dealership, so it's per account. Sorry, not campaign. It's per account. So if you only wanted to do one, then it's just that $15,000. If you wanted to do two, like let's say you have different dealerships in different areas that have 2 different accounts, then it would be per account.
Okay, and then our other question is, how are you guys defining account? Like, does that only go, campaign? Does that only go to YouTube, or is it is more involved with Google on that?
So this is YouTube spend. So just on YouTube.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you, Jessie. We really appreciate the insight. And if you guys do have any other questions, feel free to reach out to your L2T sales representative, and they can definitely get you an answer. So it's my hope that today we've increased everyone's knowledge of this product, of the YouTube TrueView product, and really how you guys can utilize it to reach more people. We obviously like this product a lot. It's very appealing, and We love the fact that Google's thrown out the $3,000 in management fees or creative fees, because that's definitely putting their money where their mouth is in terms of how strong they feel this product is. I just do want to mention, for those of you who aren't ready to commit to that $5,000 per month or $15,000 total, definitely, start out smaller. There are plenty of L2T media customers that are running smaller budgets. I think the biggest thing from today is try this out and see how it can help impact your business if you haven't tried it already. And even if you have tried it already, quite frankly. So next steps are for you all to discuss questions and strategy on YouTube with your L2T media representative. And they want to absolutely help you utilize this medium as effectively as possible so you can strategize with them on what's next for you. So thank you all for attending and for your time here today. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the month.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Jessie. Bye-bye.